Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another race episode, Coaching Conversations. I'm Jacob Hauser here at Race, and with me, yet another wonderful speakers, Silvia and Nataliya. I'll give you the floor in a minute to introduce yourself to our audience. What we do, as always, bring to you some topics that are related to coaching, hoping to raise the awareness of coaching from what we have witnessed and felt and seen and experienced the benefit of coaching in relation to so many topics. I'm not going to keep you any longer, so I'll start with, well, I'll give you the floor, actually. I'm not going to say Silvia or Nataliya, but I'll let you choose who goes first, and go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Go ahead, Silvia.
Okay. Thank you, Jacob.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Nataliya. Hi, everybody. So my name is Silvia, and I'm an executive coach. I started working coaching in 2011, and before that, I used to be an HR global leader for blue chip companies. So I always have this pleasure in helping people. And that's why I decided then at the end to move into coaching as an incredible tool to support development and change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nataliya, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Nataliya Wiedemeyer. I'm a business coach as well. And my story goes as follows. I was in organizational consulting and serving clients in primarily financial services banking industry. And then I changed sides. I had small children, so I could not travel that much. And I went to a bank and became a project manager. So I worked with consultants from the other side. And at some point, I hit some roadblocks in my career where I was not coming further. And the challenge was working with people, right? You don't deliver deliverables when you work in projects, but you work with people and you make sure or hope that you together deliver whatever is needed. And at that time, I was lucky to my boss has engaged a business coach for me who had helped me to clarify, figure out many things, which led to me leaving that organization and that position and starting to help other people to get out of those roadblocks or the dead ends seemingly that I went through, and I found a way through coaching. So that's me.
Yeah, interesting journey. And children are blessing with their challenging, but they are blessing. I hope so. I'm not talking out of experience, but I hope so. Right. So today's topic, I always start. I love to hear from, first of all, we always make sure to invite accredited coaches. And I think we're going to touch upon that topic in a minute. But I'd love to hear from you, from your perspective, point of view. What is coaching? I'm not going to point who goes first, so I'll leave that to you. Let's see how you're skilled in that. So what is coaching?
Okay, I go. Oh, Nataliya, if you wish, it's
sure. So coaching is a very partnering, collaborative way of work where a coach and a coachee, person being coached, partner to help the coachee achieve that person's goals, but in a way of going, tapping into your own thoughts, skills, potential, and finding your own ways. And the reason why it works is because every person and every brain is different. And whenever you give someone an advice, it does not really work because the person still needs to process it through your own mind, experience, mindset, beliefs. And sometimes an advice could work, but not any advice, and not every advice. And coaching does not give advice, but inquires, helps you to find out what's the best way for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the touch of the brain. If each and every single brain is individual. Yes, Silvia.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, coaching always links to change. Coaching is a transformational process that through the right guidance and support can enable, like a bit like Nataliya says, it can enable individuals and teams to find their own solutions towards achieving their goals and fostering positive and lasting change. So that is what, for me, coaching is. It's what accompanies the journey through change.
Right, lovely. So now if we want to dive right into today's topic, I see it as a little bit of a hot topic, probably mainly for coaches, and for individuals and organizations who might hear about coaching or might have had some experience with coaching. So coaching as a profession, is it profession, and the regulations and so on? And we're going to wade through quite some, let's say, again, hot points about this particular topic. So coaching as a profession. If we start generally and from this broad, quite broad perspective, what does this question mean to you, Silvia and Nataliya?
The thing that it comes to my head straight away, coaching as a profession is we are getting there, probably.
Okay.
So it's we, in some ways, steps have been made in this direction.
Right.
I think we should talk about definitely professionalism in coaching, which is the most important thing. The coaching being recognized as a profession, it still requires final stages, I think, final touches. You mentioned before about accredited coaches or things. So that's definitely something that helps. I think the market and are becoming now more and more mature and also educated to understand how to recognize professional coaches as not.
Right.
Professionalism is there and must be there. Being recognized as a profession, I think we are on the way, but there is still something to be finalized before we get there.
Okay. I'll get to this point a bit later. Yes, Nataliya.
I totally agree, obviously, with Silvia, that the market is maturing, that there's the market is not only maturing, but it's growing, and it's growing on both sides. It's growing on the supply side. There are many people who are interested to become coaches, and it's growing on the demand side as organizations and individuals see, understand, open up to what this whole coaching thing is all about, and how can it help to, I don't know, to become a better version of yourself, let's say, right? I would say that the coaching is not only a profession. Coaching is, it is profession for us doing that. For example, I don't only do coaching. I do organizational project management, change management, and team coaching, right? I do also individual coaching. And especially with team coaching, or especially with my roles as organizational consultant, I not only have coaching sessions, but I give this coaching culture to the organization. So I help people to do coaching outside of a formal session by inquiring, by actively listening, but by listening to what is being said and what's not being said, and by helping other people to explore their thoughts and mind. So it is a profession, and of course we would love to have more regulation and standards to just for organizations and coaches, people looking for a coach, to be able to easier find out who is a good coach and who is not a good coach, and who is adhering to certain standards, regulations. I mean, there are certain things that a coach who might be not under the certification, I mean, a big thing in the certification, I'm ICF certified, is obviously the skill set, but it's the code of ethics, right? Yeah. And within that code of ethics, a coach that's certified is compliant with that code of ethics. For example, not deliberately manipulating coachee in a certain directions, right? And how it is with coaches who just call them coaches, what kind of goals do they pursue? We don't know.
Yeah, true. So don't get me wrong. I think coaches, like accredited coaches, if we can focus on this topic, accredited coaches, by means of practice, are professionals, and I think this is being witnessed, this is being experienced, and it's just, on the other hand, if we look at points like everybody can call themselves a coach. So then there's a question, where is this enforcing body that can help regulating this issue that is quite, well, it is international.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I say to recognize coaching as a profession in terms of like a registered profession. We are not yet there, at least everywhere in the world, so internationally. Now, I don't know, of course, the rules about every single country, but the point is exactly this. I mean, if I'm talking about a recognized profession, I know that there's a way to enforce, I don't know, for instance, in terms of disciplinary action or a breach of code of ethics, code of conduct, or whatever we are asked to comply with. Here is left to the associations. I mean, even if I think of, in the case of coaching, responsibility, for instance, is still up with the associations. So they are the one. I mean, if I think of Europe, in the professional charter for coaching, mentoring, and supervision, so this EU document, this is a self-regulated document, and EMCC and other 7 associations signed based on EU rules and with the EU Commission support and the European Economic and Social Committee. Clearly, there is a section we talk about disciplinary actions or disciplinary procedures in case of breach of this. The question is, the enforcement then is not legal. It doesn't happen through the actual law system. So it's something where the association has to take care of. Whilst when we look at registered professions, this is actually conducted at governmental legislation. So the legislation decides what can be done or not. This is definitely so. If we look at, like Nataliya was saying, I mean, that global code of ethics that we know is gradually more and more associations are signing it. So global code of ethics, all those competencies, because that's another element that we have that is pretty much trying to be standardized with competencies, capabilities, disciplinary procedures. Yes, that's something that they are taking care of. But you are part of an association, and it's up to them. Even, for instance, if I take the example of Italy, for instance, where we got coaching is one of those non-organized professions. So you have professions organized in orders, the colleges. So this is not, and all the, like, I don't know, the health sector, architects, accountants, all of those kind of professions. These are organized. Coaching is one of those non-organized, but there's been a law back in 2013 that decided to look into those professions and allow them at least to be certified from a quality point of view.
Right.
But again, it goes through the association. So they look into the association that represents those group of professionals and say, so you as an association can, if you comply with our requirements, can recognize a certain level of a certificate, whatever, of quality to your association, to your associated members, and they can use it towards their clients, with their clients to guarantee this quality. And the principles are very similar, but again, there is no the same enforcement, and you can have when it comes to a formally recognized profession.
Yeah.
I think so another challenge. Go ahead, please finish.
Oh, no, I'm done. I'm finished.
I think another challenge with organizing coaching is that it's so versatile. So there are so many different approaches. There are so many different goals of settings, contexts of coaching. Coaching originally has come or developed from, I think, sports coach. Like you have a sports coach. You still do have sports coach, which is a very different, a very different thing and a very different role that the coach who sits on the bench and gives instruction to the playing team on how to act on the field. You have business coaches, and within the business coaches, you have so many different directions. You have executive coaches, you have career development coaches, you have, transition coaches, you have diversity inclusion coaches, you have different coaches that specify, women coaches that specify in very specific areas. And you have life coaches. And the dichotomy and all the kinds of different professions and ways and methods there is totally, it's very broad. So now, if you formalize it all, I'm thinking what would change for us. And I was saying, like this whole coaching, not only being coaching as a profession, but coaching being as a mindset. What do we do with all that? When we go into the company and we say, we want leaders to be coaches, right? We don't want them to be either leaders or coaches. We want them to have this coaching mindset. And if we do cultural transformation, we would love leaders to go through coaching school, because that helps them to think differently. But if we say, okay, this is a formal profession, then it's like, well, am I a doctor and now am I a journalist, or am I a doctor and am I now an architect, Or how does that coaching benefit each individual? And how does it enhance all those professions that we are? And as I'm saying, again, I enhance whatever, like my way of working in organizations with people, I enhance through my coaching abilities, coaching skills. Very important to, and those, like certified coaches and working in organizations, you wear multiple hats.
Right.
And you have to be aware of the hat when you're wearing a coaching hat, as opposed to where you wearing a, project management hat.
Now, I like this point you've just mentioned, Nataliya, because I've read in a research paper the argument that is really pushing coaching towards being a registered profession, like let's say psychology. Is that beneficial or not? And there are these both sides of the argument, that some might argue that actually coaching as it is more beneficial than if it's being registered as profession. So there you go, there you have it. What's your take on this quote? So Dr. Ashley, in one of her paper, I think dissertation, quoting this quote in 2004 about coaching, that the poorly trained, so there's a race concerned about the poorly trained in coaching, and what do you think?
Well, for the certifications, right?
Yeah.
At least ICF. I'm sure that European Mentoring and Coaching Council and the Center for Credentials and Education, they have similar requirements. It's not a 2 to 5 day course, but it's a learning. It's a learning that experience. So those courses, they need to be accredited for the certifications. Otherwise, you cannot count it towards it, right? And they already offer certain quality, acceptable quality. On the other hand side, if you just have those 2 to 5 day courses, again, I have got this certification because otherwise it was I would not have been taken seriously as a coach. So I have done coaching school, right?
Yeah.
And in order to gain certification, there is a process. So you have the certificate that you have graduated from a coaching school and you are a coach. Whatever. I did the Neuro Leadership Institute. I was a brain-based coach. I had the certificate.
Right.
But I did not have the ICF. Organizations, business organizations, like I could pick up individual coaches, and I could practice my skill, and I could hopefully give them value. But I found it very difficult to come into the organizational space because they are looking for credential, for the certification. Right. On the other hand side, you have, again, like this credential. Is this the industry regulation? I don't think so, because I know amazing coaches that call them coaches or call them otherwise, who expand mindsets and help people delve deeper into themselves and transform themselves and become a better version of themselves and open to perspectives without having a certification. on any
Right.
of those institutions, right? So formalizing it, would it exclude them? I mean, they would still do what they do. They don't have to call it coaching, right? So, yeah, and I think that this quote is already from 2004, and I think that certain industry standards, expectations of people on the receiving end have evolved. At least that's my impression.
Okay. Silvia, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think, yes, I think when we look at all the efforts that the main coaching associations have been doing over the past 10, 20 years, to try to recognize again this professional level in our preparation for those people who go and act and do coaching as a profession. The issue of training has been it's been a bit overcome because, like we said, there are specific requirements, and even the fact that there've been training that are definite training courses that are accredited by the associations, and courses that can be recognized valid anyway by the association if they meet certain requirements, although they are not accredited with them. Also, the fact that the experience that the person built is now taken into account. So some people can have, like Nataliya said, there are people that they already learn to do coaching in the organization because they are managers and they have to do it. Maybe they don't do formal training as one of those diplomas or whatever, but their experience can still be very valuable. And associations, they also consider and assess if this really allows a practice that is appropriate. I think that it's also a bit, I would say, more modern to look at what actually has been introduced, for instance, in terms of supervision for accredited coaches. And this is basically a continuous training, because the supervision is a development tool that we have, and development moment that all accredited coaches go through. I mean, supervision in the MCCs, I think it's mentoring for ICF, but the principle is pretty much similar. So reflective practice. So all of those things that, if you are a professional coach, you are expected to do. And so you go through your own development training, CPD, supervision, reflective practice, all of those things have to be there. So definitely you can't have a 2 days course and then go out and do training, but we also have to consider that some people might be skilled anyway. And the risk, again, of being too much standardized is that we lose the flexibility that we need. And this is exactly what we were saying before. So you really need to have a margin of flexibility in this kind, because must not forget that a coach should meet the needs of the client and the organization. So the coach is not there for himself or themselves. So in order to do this, you really have to be allowed a certain level of flexibility. So standardizing is fine. Over standardizing might be maybe excessive, or may generate maybe other kind of difficulties. Of course, the risk then it becomes a monopoly.
Right.
How do you, Silvia, if I may?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whenever, like when you said something very interesting that I want to just
yes, please.
upon. A business coach, organizational executive coach has to satisfy the needs of the client, the coachee, and of the organization.
Yeah.
How does that work? How, like, again, going back to my experience, I have had this amazing coaching, and it did satisfy my needs. Maybe on the long run, they did satisfy the needs of that organization by not having me anymore. but at least it was not what the organization has hoped this coaching would give.
Yeah. Right.
So one of the things about coaching which makes it so exciting is the open end. You don't work towards a certain outcome, but the outcome emerges, right?
Yeah.
So how do you ensure that you do satisfy organizational goals as well?
I think really there is. I would go back to this idea of coaching maturity. That it's a concept that it really needs to be explored and considered when we are talking about professional things. So you start from this model-based coaching, which is probably the one that these 2-3 years now, what they mentioned, 2-3 days of training people do, which is I do coaching to the client. That's it.
Yeah.
Till the point where you really reach, or you should really reach this, I think Professor Clutterbuck called it the systemic eclectic model, where really you are into what's happening. So it goes even beyond the philosophical thing. So it really is, I am part of the system where coaching is happening. So the question is, what can I do here? What I'm experiencing here that can help my coachee. So you are really part of it. And I think this is really quite a difficult level, that you arrive really with training, experience, reflective practice, supervision a lot, where you are really into what's happening. And in that case, as I said, when I was just listening to what you were mentioning before, your own personal experience, that thanks for sharing, because it's very brave. You also have to look, okay, what kind of coaching happened there? Was one of these directive, non-directive system? You know, we have different kind of approaches. So how the coach handled that thing, was it really part of understanding what's overall was happening, or it was just doing coaching to you? Because that was what it was asked.
Interesting, you know, like just coaching to you. And that's why, how do you put it? You have, generally, it's like almost a different profession, external coach and company internal coach. Again, because company internal coach is entangled, right?
Sure.
It's part of the system.
Yeah.
The perspective that the internal coach is giving is within the organizational culture. If the culture itself, the whole thing is lacking, let's say, psychological safety, or is lacking innovation, internal coach is unlikely to help you break out of it, right? Because he or she is part of it. In my situation, the coach was an external coach, and he was a very good coach. And why I'm saying he's a very good coach, for one thing, because he did like all the methodologies that were good, okay? But from the other thing, it's now 7 years ago. And the things, my realizations that I had in those coaching sessions, they kept taking effect until now, where I'm now. And of course, I'm in a far better place than I was back then. So that's this power of coaching, when the coach is not necessarily part of the system, and does not keep you within, so to say.
Yeah, careful. What I mean is not that the coach is part of the system in terms of is part of the organization. But here, with the system, I mean the coach is not focused only on the coachee. Coach take care also of the stakeholders and of the whole organization. So really, you are, as I said, the systemic view of things. So it's not just because when we look at the elements of coaching, you really have the coach, you have the coachee, you have the relationship between the two, and you get the context. You cannot do coaching if you forget the context. So
Well,
where is happening?
Where's the context? I mean, look, I do two different disciplines. I do team coaching and I do individual coaching. And the difference that I see in those two disciplines is that when you do individual coaching, you have the perspective of that person. Of course, you might go and you might talk to the supervisor of that coachee. You might go talk to HR. You might have the, I don't know, the 360 feedbacks, the annual appraisals of that coachee to help you kind of like put that person into that context. But you have the client is this coachee. If the client says, I'm having a conflict with my supervisor, it's not up to you to decide who is right or wrong, the supervisor. You're helping the client from the perspective of the client to resolve this conflict in the best way for, like a larger perspective, of course, not for the, like situation from the position of ego. Now, when we are having a team coaching and the person having the conflict with the supervisor are both part of the team, then you don't even coach a person, but you facilitate them in this situation because your client is a team. That's the context, right? So to me, back to the context, if you have one coachee, you're expanding the perspective, but still of that person. You don't, I mean, at least that's how it's in ICF. You don't take the perspective of the other party, right? That's your client.
The case of the stakeholders.
And if I'm, like I'm an external coach, and if I do have to report to HR about the progress of coaching, it's important to report on it's important to report very carefully, not to reveal the content of this coaching, right? Because that's confidential.
Confidentiality is always when it comes to the what they call them, the stakeholders. So that's always the topic. How much and when are you going to breach that contract or that topic of confidentiality?
You're not. And if the coachee, from the perspective of the coachee, says, this is the conflict I want to resolve by burning that bridge.
Oh, hopefully not.
Yeah, well, hopefully not. So the most that you can do is help the person to think the options through, to evaluate the larger context. But you cannot say, no, well, I'm going to go talk to the other guy. That's, you guys have to de-escalate. No, you don't become part of it.
I think I do agree with that because, partially I agree with that because in many situations, coaching has been and mistakenly taken as a form of evaluation and assessment, and therefore being rejected. And and if we take it back to being, again, organized, or coaching being in a way, coaching enables people and let's say set them free, make them realize. And as you said, Nataliya, like someone might realize, actually, I don't want to stay in this job anymore. So in a way, rebellious. So which way do we go as we're reaching towards the end of this session? Silvia, coaching as a profession, where do we stand today? Final words.
As I said, we stand at the point where coaches are required to be professional.
Right.
and needs to know what it takes to be professional. So you can't just invent yourself. I mean, wake up a morning and say, I'm a coach, and I go and I do it. As a profession, we stand, I think, at the point where it's time soon to decide what we want to do. But I think has to be guaranteed a balance between standardization and flexibility. Because if we decide to go for an over-standardization, might be risky.
Well, it might be, but we can't win it all. Nataliya, what do you think?
But ideally, sure.
Unfortunately,
that's
life.
the ability. We are coaches, so we have to find the solution with it, to find our own solutions.
Right.
I think that standardize or not, that we have more and more coaches, and those coaches can even, like coach and elevate each other. That even those 5-day, 2 to 5 day coaches, that they don't go and try to make a, like a quick buck with the coaching profession, but they have learned, experience this coaching, understand what coaching is, and that helps them already to, to experience the benefits. And if they, I mean, everyone needs a coach. Maybe not everyone wants to pay for a coach or in a position where an organization pays, but everyone can benefit. Not everyone needs, but everyone can benefit from a coach. And the more coaches, capable coaches we have, the more all of us, on whichever level in our personal development and growth we are, we can benefit from them.
Are you saying the more the better?
Of course.
Okay.
In my ideal world, everyone has those coaching capabilities.
Right. Well, thank you so very much, and thank you as well, our wonderful audience, wherever you are. As I always say, until we meet you again next time, have a nice, lovely time, and goodbye.